transition from the perspective of the National Army?
From the Gambia Armed Forces perspective, I think we recognize and appreciate all the assessments that are made. I think we have to understand that the security sector reform we are all talking about is within the context of what is called the wider governance reform in the country. And governance includes not only the security, but institutions, including political institutions. How do you calibrate the procedures to the constitution so that you, at the end of the day, you have a procedure and a process that is legitimate? Because I think all democracy is about who has the mandate of the people. The mechanisms of achieving that is through the ballot box. And then any other way is outside the constitution. And if we look inwards, as in the Gambia Armed Forces, we also have instances where there were groups, let's say the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group were a collection of individuals who, were communicating amongst themselves with the intent of subverting the state. So from that perspective, when we got the information, we investigated and arrested them and then prosecuted them using the rule of law. And I'm happy to report that everybody is aware that those who are responsible are now behind bars on the lock and key. So with the current issues in the country, we look at it from the same perspective. As citizens, nobody has a right to conspire with another to illegally remove a legally constituted government. It becomes subversion. So from that perspective, anybody who associates with anybody through whatever means, either in person or using electronic means to canvass for anybody to partake in any action which is calculated to subvert the constitutionally elected government is involved in what is called a treasonable action. And under this thing, you could be prosecuted and locked. But again, we have also done an assessment from the Gambia Armed Forces perspective. Security, we all realize, is one of the key national interests of any country. Because without peace and stability, nothing else happens. So peace, stability, and security is a vital national interest. And therefore, we've made an assessment of what are the challenges to our national interest or our national peace and stability. We've realized that there is a problem with our social cohesions. People are exhibiting tendencies that are not in line with our core values as Gambians of fellowship, brotherhood, and amity among people. We've also realized that there is an intense competition for political power. Of course, that in a democracy, groups come to form political parties and compete for national recognition from the electorate. Okay, but those ones are within a procedure, and everybody must recognize. And I want to state here that the Gambia Armed Forces, will not recognize any process which is not in line with the Constitution. So any group, any political association which try to subvert, the peace and stability and the due process of achieving any political power, if you try that, you will come across the Gambia Armed Forces. And this is not a threat. This is just to state that we have learned from our past that, any form of changing a government which is not due to the accepted norms and democratic values of the society can only lead to retrogression. And that is why we are here. Coming to what the perspective of people to the Gambia Armed Forces are. In the past, we have some of our little challenges. And among them, presently, the most current one is the release of the junglers. Let me say that, when the change happened, those who were alleged to have been responsible for the atrocities were rounded up, and those are the ones we've called the junglers. Since then, they were locked. And then in line with the TRRC, which we've all gone through, which is the process of reconciliation and establishing what has really gone wrong. The Gambia Armed Forces have cooperated Some of us have been there. We've been questioned about our roles, and then we've came out clean. Any other body who have been mentioned adversely, we've made available. Okay, but Gambians must also realize that the TRRC is an institution constituted by law, and they have their own terms of reference. So at the end of the process, there was some recommendation, and which I think the Minister of Justice has adequately articulated. And based on that, they have given reprieve to some. And then as an institution, we were obliged to release those ones. Those ones, we know where they are, we are securing them, and then, but, you know, they don't pose any threat to national security, and then they are waiting the final outcome or verdict of what the TRRC is coming. There has also been instances, you know, in the past where we have some little problems in Kanilai. Okay, there were some shooting incidents, you know, and then again it came to an outcry. But let me assure the people that within our mechanisms, we've been able to handle those ones. You know, boards of inquiries have been constituted to determine where the faults have been, and those found wanting were dealt with in accordance with the Gambia Armed Forces rules and regulations, and which is also a positive change. There is no victimization, but again, at the institutional level, we make sure that we try to adhere and abide by the rules of law. Okay. In a nutshell, what we are trying to say that the reforms are a process, and then nobody should abort the process. Because if you abort the process like the speaker, the spokesman of the government has said, then you are faced with a lot of problems. You know, how do you determine the next phase of the process? So we are appealing to all our comrades, those inside and those outside, that, you know, change is a process. And change sometimes is a difficult thing. But with goodwill and with patience, we will be able to craft the necessary strategies, the necessary rules and procedures to ensure that at the end of the tunnel, we have everything in place which is acceptable and which will be put to the people, you know, to give their verdict on whether it is acceptable to them or not. And based on their approval, then the next phase will come. Okay. The other thing I would want to say, and this is also very important, is that, you know, change is painful. And like the DGSIS has said, you know, we are going through it, you know, with the intent of creating a better society. And that better society will only come through if we all agree on the basic rules. And those rules are important in as much as people can compete. There is also the need that any group, no matter how you think your message is or your support is, you are just one element of the Gambian groups. So the only way to know whether you are speaking for the people or not is through a process. So nobody can assume that, yes, because I articulate, I sound more, I can speak more, then that means you represent the will of the people. The will of the people in our present context can only be determined through the ballot box, which we as an institution, you know, fully subscribe to, and would want to assure everybody that at the end of the day, whatever the outcome of that process, you know, would be upheld and supported by the Gambia Armed Forces as the will of
we also come back to Mr. Gassama, drug and law enforcement against the UG, because the perception also about, I think you mentioned with the issue of corruption, because people who are supposed to prevent drug abuse and use are the ones also accused to be part of that process. So how do we deal with this perception and to show that actually things are changing within?
Thank you very much, Ma. As I highlighted when I come up in the afternoon, in the early hours of the afternoon session, I made mention of the reform strategies we put in place to fight against corruption. People have two perceptions on the staff of Drug Law Enforcement Agency. One is on allowing them or giving them the liberty, you know, to abuse drugs. That means the government should legalize if not at a larger quantity level, but at a minimal level. Countries are adopting it, but that's not Gambia. So this is what they are, perceiving for government to at least legalize some quantity. Even institutions here, there are institutions who are saying, like the prison fellowship. For the prison fellowship, they've gone far. Before the change of government, I could recall. I think it was in 2016. They once came before the Security Council then, the National Security Council, with this idea of us supporting to legalize the abuse, possession of drugs in this country. We said, look, where it works in other countries, it cannot work in the Gambia. So people, our culture will not even entertain that or accept it. So these perceptions are there. The other perception is people accused drug law enforcement officers of even, aiding, selling drugs here and there. As I said, that was the norm then, but that have changed drastically. And I can assure the Gambian public that the level of corruption, if you rate it to 100 today, is 95% cleared. 95%. We have fought the corruption and cleared almost 95%. Because that says we have a zero tolerance policy on that. We don't entertain that. Whoever is involved in any corrupt practice as a staff of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency, and it came to the knowledge of management or your command, that matter is investigated by the Professional Disciplinary Committee, Standard and Disciplinary Committee, and the outcome of their investigation is what determines your fate. And that determination also is centered on the rules, internal rules we have, which include the Code of Conduct, the service rule, and the rules, the other regulations provided by government, just like the GO, the Civil Service Code of Conduct, Public Service Rules and Regulations. These are all rules that govern all of us in our various institutions. So let the Gambian public know very well that I am not going to defend there is no corruption, because as the head of the institution, I'm in my office. Directors, commissioners are in their office. Our subordinates are the ones out there in the field doing the work. But clearly, we can say anybody who is found wanting, when issues of that nature come, is uncompromisable. We don't entertain it. And we appeal to the general public. Anybody who comes across any officer of drug law enforcement or any security outfit into any corrupt practice, as alluded to by the IGP. We have our rules and standards and procedures, disciplinary measures that deals with discipline. So discipline constitutes everything. Attitude towards the work, attitudes among ourselves, the way you comfort, your approach on the job during operations, so it covers a lot. So these are issues that we don't compromise with. And we want to assure the Gambian people that corruption is a thing of the past now. Where it exists, you face the full force of the law. By applying the internal rules we have in place. There were instances people, we prosecute them. IG made mention of bribery. There was somebody who was bribed, and the person who bribes you, and the both of them were charged and taken to court, and they were convicted. So that's our standpoint.
That's a changing image.
There is other social media, a lot of issues on the social media. In fact, DG made mention of social media. If there is somebody who is a victim today, my institution, I'm also a victim. Because every now and then you see people going out there. Recently they say massive corruption at the drug law enforcement, accusing me as the DG of being in corruption. Yes, they may, because people don't want change. There may be some who have been found wanting or are suspected of being found wanting or are being pursued, and they want to, just to divert people's attention on such issues, they just go and share it. Today, social media, you can go and write anything. We don't have some of those facilities to pursue, to know who they are. So this is our biggest problem. But one day we'll get there.
Thank you. I think, DG, thank you for that presentation. I think we look at the nexus between drug and conflict. Again, we are now putting our minds on worst-case scenarios. And that's hence the need for us to reconcile and keep this country together. As I indicated earlier, drug cartels want weak governments or conflict zones. I mean, we are witnesses to it. Most of the cannabis in this country is coming from Casamas. And if you do mapping in the Casamas, you realize that this drug is coming from MFDC-controlled areas. That's one challenge. So we'll have, I'm not saying it will get December, but we are just saying why we should prevent the Gambia from slipping into a kind of chaos and situation. Two, should lawlessness be the order of the day? Many people who will be breaking the laws will be on drugs. And I think that's also a concern of the DG, that most of the people who will be participating will be high on drugs. That's so very difficult now to resolve conflict with people who are already drugged. We saw it in other countries. Diplomatically, I wouldn't want to name a country. But we know most of these conflict countries, those who are carrying the guns and the AK-47s, if you cite them, you'll find wraps of some kind of drugs on them. That's one. Or number two, number three. Then the other one is the cartels. The cartels will invade this country because now you'll have lawlessness, you'll have weak states, and the drugs will come and pass. In their millions, we are talking about multi-million dollar or billions, businesses in the drug industry. So for all these reasons, is this the type of Gambia we want? In the name of, again, we are not, as he said, we want to support constitutionality. To the extent possible, we've all been apolitical. We've been apolitical. We've not favored any, we just give our analysis based on what we collect. What is this the type of Gambia we want? Just in the name of something. I think we need to, again, think around that. Think of the Gambia where there's lawlessness, there's breakdown, everybody is in the streets smoking cannabis. Youth sitting, no one is under any form of law and order. Is that the type of Gambia we want? And once it sets in, it's difficult to remove. Once a conflict sets in into a country, it's very difficult. Ask me Somalia, is it? Ask me other parts of Africa, is it? Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. I mean, once a conflict starts, it's very difficult to resolve. It takes time. So, and the drugs are really, once it happens, if it's like the prayers, ning drug dealer kasada bonde, kasada mean follow bonde, well, alama Cairo et taladulatu, fitinoeke, because that's where they thrive. So we don't want that type of situation. I hope all of us in the Gambia, with all the enjoyment on these sensational talks on December, seizing and possessing, and at times enjoyable, because they are hitting at the director, or they are hitting at DG, or they are hitting at IG, and you enjoy it, but think of the implication. What could this mean for the overall country? This is not what we want. Schools closed, university closed, hospitals closed, no market, no fish, no meat, no fuel, no money in the pocket.
I really agree with what Dini said. Drug cartels want to operate in violent situations. This is why in the Middle East, there will be no peace in the Middle East unless these drug cartels are controlled, or drugs, those who are dealt into drugs are brought to book. Because opium, that's the economy of this place, Afghanistan. It is funded by commodity. This is why they will not want peace. So I don't think we want that for the Gambia. This is a very small country. We were all here 2016. There was no fighting, but how many people fled out of the Gambia? How many people fled out of the Gambia? And the consequence of those movements, a lot of things here and there was no work. As you rightly say, African Gambians, just send somebody out of work just for a day. 1 week is even too much. Because you go out and get your daily bread here and there. So let us help ourselves. We want to appeal to the families. We have transformed our institution from 10%. By the time we were coming in the first administration, before from 10% to 90-something% today. We have changed the image of the agency drastically. We have restructured the organogram of the institution to modern, professional standard, on professional standard procedures, in line with best practices. We've created new structures, new director lines, in consultation with our partners, with our other partners within the sub-region, both regional and sub-regional and international. We did that. As I said, the institution was isolated. But of recent now, UNODC, the main UN body on drugs and crime, they are coming on board. In fact, they have now established an office in the Gambia here, partnering with us. And they have provided a lot of support and training. Training. We have benefited tremendously a lot on training, on all aspects of law enforcement. Most of what we share with our colleagues, the police, the SIS, all of us together. And internally we collaborate. So I want to appeal to our own fathers, our brothers, our sisters out there. Security officers are not angels, or we are not devils to know what is around us. All what we need is information. They have to share with us with information to be able to fight against crime. Thank you very much.
Immigration, you're also on the hot seat with the recent passport scandal that is going on in the country. People are on the media, they're talking about all these things. How do we stop national documents reaching people in the wrong way?
On the issue of the diplomatic passport, it is not our mandate to be issuing diplomatic passport, but it is our mandate to be issuing the ordinary passport, that is the biometric passport, and then the MRP, that is machine-readable passport. At this juncture, the issue of the diplomatic passport is under investigation, and the investigation comprises of the Gambia Police Force and other stakeholders, including our own institution, that is Immigration Department, so that at the end of the day, we would know what have transpired, and consequently, it will come to light, and the whole world will be acquainted as per what have transpired. Furthermore, I would like to relay this message in reaction to people coming into the Gambia, because we are the people responsible for the movement of persons into, within, and outside the Gambia. We have gone further to make sure that there are well-established and recognized entry points, and we are advising anybody, a passenger, any person coming into the country, to make sure that you go through the recognized entry points. And we, at the airport, we have seen what we call the automatic border control system. The automatic border control system is a system that can help us to monitor the movements of persons into and out of the Gambia, and as well as monitor your movement within the country, because wherever you go to, the address is always with us, and we do monitor your movement in the Gambia. It can also recognize or showcase documents that are fraudulent, whether it is expired, fake visas, fake passports. It can easily detect that. And we know within the sub-region, we have a lot of terrorist groups. When your name is being inputted into the system, wheresoever you come from, we will be able to realize that this person is in the suspect index, and we need to make sure that there is a stoppage either of your entry or receive you on arrival and hand you over to the stakeholders or necessary institutions that are supposed to take up the responsibility in addressing that problem. Again, when you go to the land borders, we have recognized land borders, and we have immigration officers in all these recognized entry points. However, we are trying to make sure that manually we enter and record all the details of passengers coming in. But we have also get into a project that we call the Midas system, which is just going to be like the system at the airport. We have one in Karang, the Senegalese side of the border, where they are using the Midas system. So the same system will be replicated in the Gambia so that it can control the movements of people. We can, as well as those that are coming in, those that are in the suspect index or wanted people worldwide, so that we can take actions upon arrival. We are also trying to establish the Border Patrol Unit. The Border Patrol Unit will be established very soon in all the 5 regions, from West Coast, LRR, URR, CRR, North Bank, so that these patrol units will be constantly patrolling the porous borders, because we know that the Gambia have a lot of porous borders, and patrolling these places need resources. And those resources, when available, will be able to patrol the whole country in all the borders. We have what we call the Community Engagement Unit that is supposed to be sensitizing the communities, that is in the contiguous zone areas, that is along the borderline, the Gambia and then Senegal, where both communities can come together, enlighten them about the security issues that are prevailing within their borders. So that if message is there for us to make sure that we avert any problems that are coming on board, we will be able to take necessary actions. We have realized people coming out of certain borders, getting into the Gambia, conducting armed robbery, going out of the Gambia, and that cannot be done, that cannot be averted without the support of the community. Therefore, we need to communicate to the community. We need to sensitize them so that we can avert those issues. Again, we have what we call immigration requirements at the entry point. In each entry point, there are requirements for each passenger, whether you are a tourist, a Gambian, or a non-Gambian. The Gambian needs the document to identify yourself as a Gambian so that we can accept you in. We equally need the non-Gambians that are coming in to be in possession of valid traveling document. You also need to have sufficient amount of money to sustain your living in the Gambia, so that you cannot become a pupil within the community. You cannot become a liability in the society. And again, you need your air ticket to bring you to the Gambia and a return ticket back to your home. If you are transited, you need your onward transit ticket back to your home. We also consider those that we feel that deem fitting that they need to have guarantors to bring them to the Gambia, that your guarantor should be the person that will take up your IR, that is the immigration responsibility at the arrival hall. You must get somebody to uphold that immigration responsibility. If something goes wrong and you are supposed to go out of the country, then this person will be so responsible. So there are hosts of things that a passenger that is coming into the Gambia need to fulfill at the port of entry before you are accepted in. We are also cognizant of the fact that we are signatories to many protocols. For example, the ECOWAS protocol on free movement. But then we need to make sure that these requirements are fulfilled at the entry point. Despite the fact that we are signatories, we need to make sure that all the entry requirements are needed. What we have to do extra mile, we do coordinate with SIS so that upon arrival, these people that we coordinate for them to know, they also pick it up. You said some time ago within this discussion that somebody's right stops somewhere else is where somebody else's right comments. My responsibility probably is a way of making sure that they come in, I monitor in the country, but as well as we coordinate with NIA to make sure that these people's activities in the country is being looked into. Again, on the issue of the national ID card, I think it has already been resolved because many outlets have been operationalized. So therefore, the issue of struggling to get the ID card is now minimal. Because I did say this morning that we have almost 200 plus applicants today. And you can see previously it was tens. You have almost 400, 500 applicants per day. So it was so much so tense that we were struggling. But as of now, that is being diffused. At least we have addressed that. So we also try to make sure that there is aliens registration within the country. So that each alien that is in the country, you have to regularize your status. You have to make sure that the aliens registration, you are being covered by the aliens registration. So that at the end of the day, you'll be able to know the number of aliens living in the Gambia. So that at the end of the day, wherever you are located in the Gambia, we will be able to notice that you have moved from one region to another. And it's a way of mitigating crimes within the country. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I think we just move to the other side, and we hand over to Mr. Ndao from the Fire Services to also give us, at least you have already explained what you're doing and your constraints and everything, but how do you change the perception about if they call or alarm, they move around without...
For the fire brigade, Gambia Fire and Rescue Service, I have said all and sundry here. The perception of the Gambian populace about fire service coming without water or coming late, we have been doing sensitization over the radios, trying to take out that problem between the Gambia Fire and Rescue Service with the populace. It's all because of delay in calls, I have said here. False call. You can call Serekunda and tell them that there's a fire at that place, while it is deterring and other person who need that response. It's a burning issue for the whole day. But what I'm here, what I want to, because all the security chiefs have said it here, this is our country. And I think the best way is let the preachers keep on talking. And I think it will come to that we are all Gambians. The impasse I have seen a lot. If I can tell you, I come from Farah to Banjul. But during the impasse, 6 o'clock it used to meet me in my office, and still now. But if you look at the kids and their family and their parents going out of the country, it was really too much. And as citizens, we should take concern of that. That this is our country, this is where we love, this is where we live in. Why should we go out of the country to another country? For what reason? And we all know that Gambia is bestowed with peace. Let us maintain the peace. Appealing to all Gambians, let's nurture the peace and the stability of the country.
So much. Over to Mr. Mane for the prisons. Perceptions about prison, poor food. In fact, when you eat food that is not nice, they jail food. How are you changing those things?
No, there is another perception about the prison, and that was they also tortured people there.
Exactly. No, and in fact, not only tortured, they abuse the rights of prisoners. Because
they seize their food.
Seize their food.
They fed them with cutters.
So in a way, what we want to say is...
No, we can twist the question, but we cannot twist the imagination of the Gambian.
Imagination is what people imagine that we are talking about.
That the prison,
but these are perceptions. That so let him...
Yeah, in fact,
it's yesterday and today.
Exactly.
In fact, I can't dispel that allegation. It used to happen in the prisons because we all know how the prisons was operated during the former regime. So, but the reason why I said we have at least made a tremendous internal reforms, I can stand here today to proudly say that definitely, even prisoners, even some of the inmates, genuine inmates, have definitely concurred with what we are now doing with regards to their diet. The diet, there is a contract committee that has been set up by the Ministry of Interior. I think police is part of it. Just recently, they have reviewed the prison's diet and have made some increment in some of their condiments. People are complaining of poor diet. To me, it is not poor diet. You know, making everybody, quite a number of, almost 500 individuals satisfied in food is difficult. But what we are now going in for, in order, is that we want to make sure that the food that is being served is it is nutritious and have the balanced diet. That's what we are in for. Why we cannot? The prison cannot operate like a hotel. Like you want your desired this. It will be very difficult. But in as much as definitely the prison is concerned, we are trying. With regards to the issue of torture, well, I can give you an example. Presently, as I am talking to you, there are some of our officers who are laid off. They are facing investigation with regards to this issue of torture, and still the case is being handled by the police, and we are now waiting for the final outcome of that case. Any decision that comes out of it, we are going to take the law accordingly. So the issue of torture, and you mentioned something like there are favoritism in terms of having how prisoners are handled. All those have been addressed. Like our officers have been exposed to at least 2 training by the International Center for Democracy and Human Rights, I think it's IHDR, on 2 occasions, where 30 of our officers on 2 batches, that 60 have been trained on this human right, and more so the Mandela Rule. We all know that, as my colleague has already said, that almost all our acts are absolute. Likewise, the prison also. The prisons, our all is also as old as modern art. But presently, it is under review at the Ministry of Interior together with the Justice. And what we wanted to at least introduce in the Prison Act more so is the Mandela Rule, which is internationally recognized. So therefore, this is the stand now we are.
That means the perception have changed.
It has really changed. And
that internally you're also reviewing yourself.
Internally, for sure, yes. Yeah.
And the final perception for this program will be on the customs aspect of being corrupt. They get people's money and all those things. How are we changing that perception today? Because you have mentioned, I think earlier, that you've increased your revenue to what, 1 billion plus?
Monthly now,
Yeah.
and we are heading towards 1.2.
Wow.
Because of the leadership that we have. At the GRA, we are well motivated. There are 3 schemes that go along the lines, which is why most of the time you see GRA officers driving cars. You can apply for an instant loan of $50,000 on the spot. You have building loan, and you have car allowances. And this is not subject to vigorous investigations. Once you are qualified, so you can have it. This is why most of the time you see GRA officials driving cars. Not because they were able to get it outside from somewhere else, but there is a scheme. And then we also have a credit union, very healthy. We have what we call the social fund. Every member of GRA, at the end of every month, is deducted some amount of money that is sent to the social fund. And then we have the grant also. We have a special scheme where Tobaski, and we, or even monthly, we give credit on food items to our staff so that you don't even need to struggle yourself. Because we all know that from day 1 of the month, around the end of the month, may be very difficult. So the schemes are there where you can go and take sugar, rice, and ongoing payment. So this kind of motivational incentives, is reducing that perception, even within ourselves, because nobody will want to do it. The next moment you are faced, you are called upon to be addressed by the appointment, promotion, and disciplinary council. By the way, we have that. We have a code of conduct. And you have seen of recent, or even during the past regime, I wouldn't want to mention name, but how many officials were jailed at the JARE? These are some of the measures. It is not easy when you have an institution of over 1,000 people to expect everybody to toe the line. But what I'm trying to say is the current management that we have has given us all the opportunity to ensure that people will not deviate from the core values. JARE has core value of integrity, fairness, and honesty. And we uphold that. And it has been draining in our brains by the management that everywhere you go as a JRA, you show yourself as an example. This question of corruption is normal. Sulutambita Bafada. So this question of corruption, we will have to live with it because it has been an old adage that custom officers can make money. That's what they think. So I know even some of you here may have the perception, but I'm not worried because that's part of us. For 30 years, I've been living with it, so it's not a problem.
Thank you so much.
I have a follow-up question about some of the challenges you face. I think one of your biggest critiques have been people in the diaspora and people who travel out of this country about the mobile phones. You talked about that. The last time we had a book launching, even the Honorable Minister of Tourism also expressed a concern that I think the rate at which your officers really, I think they have been very unfriendly to people who return to this country. Imagine people who live this country for 15 years, they're coming back for the first time. It's an extended family system. I have 6 mobile phones, and then I have to surrender them, I have to pay. I think it's grossly unfair. I don't know what the law is. Maybe it's also an archaic law, I don't know.
Remember, we don't make laws, we implement. When the laws used to say only you have, there's what you call international allowance, travel allowance, anywhere in the world. You cannot go with more than 200 sticks of cigarette, more than 1.5 liter of wine, sorry to use this word, more than 1 laptop, more than 1 telephone, or even a camera, internationally. Because we feel that everybody who's traveling must have to go along. But then, because of the benevolence of our present management, he decided to say, look, we have 4 GSM companies, so at least we can allow Gambians to come in with 4 different mobiles. Anything beyond that, depending on the value, because customs deals with value. If a mobile, for instance, costs $50,000, 40.75% of that would be almost about $45,000. If you leave 10 of it, it's $450,000. By the time you realize you've lost $1 million, just because I am the owner, I'm a Gambian. The diaspora came in. During the dispensation, they misunderstood. And I don't blame the government, because when they came in, it was very difficult to understand at the time. And I was a victim. I had to be transferred because people didn't understand. Because I was the head of customs, but they misunderstand the customs. When it is, we are there to collect revenue, because that's our responsibility, primary responsibility. If we do not collect revenue, government will not be able to implement their projects and pay salaries. That is coming to your question now. That this economy, when there is a problem, GRA will not collect revenue. And if GRA doesn't collect revenue, government will not be able to service debt, they will not pay salaries, and it's going to be civil strife. So the best thing is for us to have a tranquil situation where people can bring in goods and come out and pay, so that all of us at the end of the day would go home, our pockets filled. Otherwise, all of us are going to be redundant. And then we're going to join the bandwagon. Now, let me just say this about this 3-year journey. I was going to think that you were going to ask me what is going to be the responsibility of GRA and customs. I think the first thing that our management is talking about is to mobilize our efforts as a team. Usually, we cannot tackle this problem that's coming in without coming in as a team and speaking the same language. We must sit as heads of different institutions and align ourselves and prepare ourselves for the eventuality tomorrow. We must be able to get information and share information with the aim of tackling. That's the bottom line. Sitting down and talking is just one thing. How much information do we know on the level of preparedness or preparation for these people? What are we doing in preparing ourselves now against the time? What are the mechanisms that we need to put in place? I mean, if there's going to be a real contact with the people, because NSA, you mentioned something that was very important. There was a time when you wrote a letter that the heads of services should go for a countrywide tour for sensitization of the SSRS. Am I right? It was put on hold. Very important and key. Because one of the recommendations of the SSR team, which is perennial challenges, was for district and regional dialogue with the people who are very concerned. If that happens constantly, people would be au fait of what's happening. And then we will have the opportunity at least to settle some people's mind. So practically, I am saying as members of the security sector, let us come together and work as a team towards what is coming ahead, because we can never know the dimension it is going to take tomorrow. But those kind of things do not fit in this country. 1.8 million, we are too small for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Job. GRA, you want to come in? Yeah.
Yes, I just want to come in with regards to the issue of the water cannon. The issue of the water cannon is very clear. Now, in my previous statements, I made mention that every game has a rule. And the issue of protest and demonstration is guided by a requirement, a rule. That is to say that if you want to do a protest or a demonstration, you do it in accordance with the Constitution, which requires you to put up a permit request. I don't think under normal circumstances, where you have followed the rules, a permit is approved, security is provided, that the water cannon is used. And now, in the event that the water cannon has to be used, it must be under absolute conditions. And these are equipment that are used in a democratic countries. There had been times in the past that we don't have this at our own disposal. All that we had was use of the gun or otherwise. Now that we have moved from that government to a democratic government, which requires the use of water cannons, but the water cannons mostly, and under normal circumstances, are used when it is absolutely necessary. Here, we are advising people to follow the due process of the law. And the process of the law here is, you want to make a protest, inform the security. They will guide you, they give you the protection. And before the water cannon is sprayed, there is warning. There is advice that you have to disperse. And if the protesters turn violent, destructions, damages, lives are coming, that's the time that water cannon will be used to disperse people, to discontinue. But there is no said officer who will just find people gathered, he sprays them. So in a nutshell, what I will advise is, you want to do it, liaise with my office, give out directions, we give it to you. You think we do not, or we are refusing you on just no cause, that may not be the final action. What you can do, if I give or if I make any denial, get to the court and tell the court that the office of the IGP has refused me. And to our own opinion, we feel it was not really very reasonable. The courts will come in and say, look, IG, we are now giving you an order, give it out.
Some may be arguing out there, okay, this 3-year issue has been polluted in the media and the news and everywhere. Then there is no point even going to the IGP to seek for permission. If we go there, they will not give us permission. How do you deal with those such issues?
No,
That are being thrown out?
Now, like a wrong system, however long it might be, it cannot be justified because it had been long done. Here, what we are debating is statute, morality, or whatever you may call it. Let people understand that if in a peaceful demonstration, you need to inform the security. And Gambians are guided by the principles of the courts, which has availed case studies where, even though the atmosphere had been peaceful, but in the exercise of that peaceful gatherings, other people's rights had been infringed. And that's why, under normal circumstances, you are advised to list and have security clearance. If you gather in a large number and your gathering undermines national security, the security will try to let you disperse by peaceful means. If you think this is wrong, there is a better way to do it. And that's why maximum of equity here comes and say, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Two wrongs can never make a right. We are not encouraging people to come in large numbers and defy. Even though it may not be fine, but that is the requirement. We have time to say if it is a bad law from now to December, let's make amendments. But then that's not going to work, because if the security will allow everybody at your own time to go out, and opinions are not the same, chaos are going to happen. So coming onto the issue of the water cannon, it will not be used unless it is absolutely I repeat, absolutely necessary. If there could be other ways to say this pass and this pass, that's not going to be a problem. But let's not even allow the idea of asking people to disperse, because if you think you want to do it, come to us, we guide you, protect you. I have seen a country which I visited, and they said they had the water cannon for 10 years, and that has not been used. Even though that they bought it, but they don't use it, because the people have not given them the cost to use it. So let the cost not come. Okay?
Yeah, just an anecdote to the water cannons. Contrary to what many people also think, the Gambia government did not consciously order a water cannon so that they could spray Gambians with hot water. This is not a conscious government policy to hurt Gambians. And people also, because of the much talk about the 3 years Jotna and the perceived or expected December demonstrations, also are of the view that these water cannons are purposely brought in to hurt Gambians. Talk is not easy. It's not everybody who can talk. The most brilliant people in this world, they make public speeches and they have gaffes. Sometimes in the process of saying something, you may inadvertently say something and then send the wrong message. In this country, after the war in Liberia, twice soldiers from Yundum barracks had mutinies. They came up to the State House and they would pass through Denton Bridge. We didn't have water cannons. Could we still use them for events like that? Absolutely. Police officers can get angry. You know, they are also armed people. They can also have a mutiny. The water cannons could be used for that. So the water cannons were not deliberately brought into this country for political operations. No, far from that. This is a very democratic dispensation, very clean system that is out to talk to people through dialogue. It is highly likely that these cannons will lie here until they get rotten and they'll never be used. That's what we hope and pray for. Yeah. We don't want violence in this country, and this is the idea behind all these meetings, to tell Gambians that no, we do not have the slightest imagination to hurt any Gambian or to damage the body of any Gambian. No, far from it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sankara Ibrahima, for that contribution there. We'll take the last one, I think, from Mr. Jam, and then we wrap it up.
Let me give you one more, December. just the timing. I think December is critical for our economy. 25% of our GDP is tourism. December is a very critical phase in that. I hope that would also be a reason for people to rethink of doing something in December. All the reason, 25%. Not to talk of the other connected businesses, the imports, the businesses, the hotels, people working in the industry, etc., 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 etc. Not to talk of the social services and amenities outside the hotel industry. So I think we need to reflect all this and think, is it worth it in the end? Should we send all these to the dogs for this, or can we find other options? I think I want us to reflect on that one as well. Thank you, General.
Thank you very much, DGSIS. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I think the point I will raise in closing is that, you know, we've all talked about democracy. I think democracy has levels of representations. Everybody falls within a ward. Everybody falls within a constituency, and so on and so forth. If there is anybody with any grievance or any issue you want to raise with the government, I think you can channel it through your representatives. The culture of democracy must be nurtured. And then people must know that it's not only, the solution do not lie in the street. The solution, as has been said here, is dialogue. And you can only dialogue through people. When people sit down, you know, with their serene minds, you know, and discuss the rationalities of issues. It's possible that the way you see a particular issue is different, like the DG has said here. You know, December is a critical moment in our economy. Okay. The revenue that comes in economics, we say that there is a multiplier effect. Out of every expenditure, you know, there is concomitant expenditures that follow. So the income that we earn, you know, go into sustain the engine of the economy over the year. So people must be conscious of the economic interests of the country and use the available democratic structures, through our representatives, to our local leaders, through our traditional leaders, and put forward their opinion and their points. And then we will all reflect it as a nation rationally, and discuss the best way forward and the best outcome for the country without resorting to acrimony and pitching one another against one another. Thank you very much for that distinction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And please, finally, as it transits, we would want the other collaborators, critical stakeholders, is the communication and media houses. I think that's very, very important. We've seen Rwanda, 1994. The effect of Radio Rwanda. If you read the Rwanda conflict, one thing that really worsened the situation was the propaganda, the black and bad propaganda, pitting one ethnic group against the other. So we think we have all the opportunities, in as much as it's a challenge, but there are existing opportunities in countries. The media houses, the print, the media, the newspapers, the radios. Let's be measured and so restrained and be reconciliatory. And I hope your office and the office of the government spokesman could also contribute from that angle to see the narrative is very helpful, not a divisive narrative. I hope, because what they say can go, me, I get report. Hey, Radio Kare, I mean, we are all witnesses to that. Again, in the allowance of democracy and free speech. But there must be responsibility. And I hope your offices can also contribute from in that direction to help us have one calm Gambia. That's what we need. Thank you.
To have one calm Gambia, that's what we need. Thank you very much for that. I thank you all for this important dialogue. It's like we have just started dialogue with the nation, because this is like the beginning of that dialogue you're talking about from the Office of the President's perspective. And I'm sure the other institutions would also be engaged to be able to discuss amongst ourselves. Because those who want to protest and those who do not want the protest, they all have issues. How do we understand the issues? We must sit over them, discuss them, internalize and analyze them, so that we come out with something that will bring the country forward and move us forward in terms of our development, peace and tranquility. And that is the key for this discussion. We hope that we would have more engagement, and I would love us to, another time, have a session like this in the local languages, so that our people who cannot speak English can also benefit from the rich dialogue we have gotten here today. Thank you very much, and we thank everybody for putting this program together. You want to close with a word or two, because already they're giving me a signal. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, gentlemen and lady. The support at the back. Thank you very much for this. It's very healthy and important. I guess we will move forward once we continue to dialogue. There is nothing that cannot be resolved without dialogue. And I'm happy that it is a direction we have taken, and it can lead us to more dialogue.